Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to give you a rundown of blueprints in Zoho CRM and show you why you should be using them in your system. So I'm going to start by showing you an existing deals pipeline. So I'm in my test system here and this probably looks pretty familiar to you. This is in fact the base CRM setup. If you sign up for CRM today, this is how it will look. And when I go into a deal, you'll see I've got my stages along the top. Now, this is a really nice visual indicator of what's going on within the deal pipeline. I can quickly jump to a different stage. The problem here is that there's very little requirement to follow a process. So it almost gives too much flexibility. And when you're first starting out, that's probably the right option. That's probably the right way to go about things because you don't necessarily have your processes refined at that stage. However, as you grow as a business and you have more and more people doing the same job role, that process becomes more important, and that's where blueprints come in. So we're going to go into setup in the top right hand corner, and I'm just going to open that in a new tab. We're then going to go into blueprints, and you can see there's loads of options in the settings. So I normally go straight for the search because otherwise I can never find the right thing. So we then go into blueprint, and you'll see by default there's a task management blueprint in here. And in fact, I think sometimes there's a lead blueprint by default as well. We're going to create one for deals. So we're going to hit create blueprint. We're going to give it a name. Now you can have multiple blueprints per module and have different criteria for why something would be in that blueprint. But to keep things simple, we're just going to do a blueprint that impacts all deals. So we're going to choose our module, which is going to be deals. We're going to choose our layout. So by default, you've just got your standard layout. But if you've customized your CRM and created multiple layouts, you'll see that as a drop-down. And then we're going to choose our field the blueprint will be based on. In this case, it's going to be the stages because that's the thing that we want to refine the process for. It's the stages, this top bar up here. We can then set a criteria for which records go into the blueprint. In our case, we're going to leave this empty because we want all records to go in. But you could have it just be certain records if you wanted it to. We're going to hit next. And this is going to bring up your blueprint builder. And this is kind of like almost like a flowchart builder. And you'll see on the side here, I've got all of my stages. These match to the stages I've got on my deal right now. And I'm able to drag these in. And drag that into the circle. And then when I do that, I'm then able to start joining them up. So if I drag a couple in, so from qualification, I can map that down to needs analysis. And I can then give that transition a name. So I'm going to say qualification completed. Oh, shows how much I need to look at my keyboard, but we'll call it that for the time being. And then we can also do needs analysis completed, for example. So we'll do completed, perfect. Now, what this does is this is now going to force us to follow this process. So if I save this blueprint, and we've only done it with 2 stages for now. If we go back into deals, I'm going to create a new deal. So when you create your first blueprint, it won't automatically enter all of the existing deals into that blueprint. Not until that deal is next edited. When that deal is next edited, it will then enter the blueprint. But just so we can see the difference, I'm going to create a new deal. So I'm going to call it test, fill in all the various bits of information here and hit save. And you'll see now, instead of having this bar where I can freely jump to any stage I want, I've now got buttons that force a certain process. So right now, all I can do is qualification completed, badly spelt that is. However, I can go in and add some additional options. So we've got close lost here. So I'm going to drag from qualification to close lost. And I'm going to call this closed lost. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to color this as red because it's a negative. We don't really want to be losing any deals, so we're going to mark that as red. And in our case, it's not just from qualification that we can go to close lost. It's actually from any stage. So we're going to click on our transition here, and we're going to create this as a common transition. And what this does is it draws kind of invisible lines to all of the other stages, so we can move to close lost from qualification, but also from needs analysis and value proposition, without having to draw the lines manually every single time. So we'll do that. If we go back to our deal and refresh, you will now see we've now got those 2 options on here. Now, if I go to qualification completed, you'll now see that option has changed And it, again, pushes me through that process. Now, within blueprints themselves, we've got a lot of options and a lot of customization to make this even more powerful. So, for example, with closed lost, for example, we might want to require a comment as to why something's been closed lost. So, as part of our transition here, we can click in and we've got a number of options here, but we can go into during and we can go in and require a particular field, or in our case, we're going to require a note. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add in associated item and a note. And I'm going to hit republish. Now, when I go back into here, I'm going to give it a refresh and I'm going to go to close lost. You'll see it's going to pop up and ask for a note. Now, if I don't fill that in, it's not going to let me go any further forward. And I can do that with notes, I can do fields, and I can even do checklists, which is a really powerful feature. So again, it's structuring that deals pipeline so that everybody has to follow the same process. And so that as you move through the process, the same fields are being completed. So you've got consistency in your data, which is really, really important in the CRM. So let's do for needs analysis. Let's add in some additional things in here. So let's say when we get to needs analysis completed, we want to be able to input the amount. So that's going to be mandatory. We may also want to add a description, but that can be optional. So we can set a field as optional. And then in addition to that, we might want to also ask for a tag, for example, and I can reorder these if I want to. So again, I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back in and look at our blueprint. And I'm going to hit needs analysis completed. And then you'll see it's now going to pop up and it's going to ask me to fill in this information. Now, if I hit save here, again, it won't let me do anything, but I can save as draft. So if I've got a partially completed amount of information, I can save as draft and you'll see that on here. Then you can see the little wheel there that indicates this has been saved as a draft. So I can come back later and fill in the rest of the details if I wanted. So I can now go in and put £5,000 in there, hit save. And that takes us to that final stage where our only option right now is close loss. So if I hit that, I'm going to put in my notes, and that takes us to the end of the process. Now, we've no longer got any blueprint stages, so it now displays this normal pipeline. But if we go back into the pipeline, you'll see it goes back into our blueprint, which is quite nice. Now, going back to the blueprint editor, I want to talk through some of the other options here. So as part of the transitions, we've got quite a few options. So we've spoken about a common transition. As part of our before criteria, we can specify who is allowed to do that transition. So by default, only the record owner is allowed to click these buttons. So if you're not the record owner and you click onto the deal, it won't show anything here. Now, there are two ways to resolve this. We can go in and click on the box and we can add in any users or roles or anything relevant onto here. And I'm ashamed to say, I only realized you could do this a couple of days ago. You can actually hit the minus on record owner and then it defaults to all users. And that's the only way you can get to the all users. Previously, the way I was doing it was adding all roles on there. And it's one of those little things. It doesn't actually document this anywhere. So it was a bit of a surprise when I stumbled across it. We can also set a criteria. So in this particular instance now, any user that looks at a deal in this stage can do this transition. But we can also add a criteria. So it might be that actually this transition is only available if the amount is over £5,000. So if I put in over £5,000, so then what we might have is a different transition. So you can see here, we can do two transitions here. And this one's going to be, we'll just call this demo. This particular transition, again, we're going to say for all users, but this time we're going to say where the amount is under £5,000. So we're going to do under or equal to £5,000 and we'll republish that. So now when I go into my deal and go into needs analysis, so skip ahead. So we've got needs analysis. You'll see it's only showing me the demo option right now because my amount is £5,000. If I increase my amount to £6,000, you'll see the button updates. So again, it allows you to have a really, really complex process, but makes it really easy for the user because they don't have to know that this is happening behind the scenes. The process can kind of take care of it for you. Now, one of the things I noticed then, and I'm just going to show you how to tidy this up. So if I put this back down to 4,000, our demo button is now after close lost. So we're going to go back into our blueprint editor. We're going to click on needs analysis and we're going to hit this little reorder transitions button. And that'll allow us to move these around. So then we can put demo before close loss. And I just think it looks a little bit neater. Now back into the different things we can do here. So I'm going to remove this criteria here just for simplicity. We've spoken about the during and the fact we can add different requirements of things to be completed. We can also add things like messages that are displayed to the user, and we can embed widgets and kiosks as well. They're quite complex in themselves. I'll keep that for another video. Now, where blueprints are even more powerful is the after statuses. This is where we can run automation triggered directly off of what a user's done. So if you're not using a blueprint right now, the best way to do this is via workflows. But that can become quite messy because you end up with lots of different workflow rules, and it's quite hard to see when you're looking at the list of workflows how those workflows actually relate to the process within the system. This is really nice because actually you can look at, okay, well, someone clicks that button, these are the automations that happens, and it makes it really easy to see how the system's actually put together. Now we've got a number of options in here, and again, I won't go through all of them. There's probably a separate video for that. But some of the key ones in here I'd be thinking about using are email notifications. So that can be both internal email notifications and emails to your customer/client. Tasks, again, they can be internal tasks. They can notify the task owner. Meetings is the same thing. Field updates and create records are great automation tools. So, for example, if you want to have, say, a date stamp when a certain stage is hit, a field update is perfect for that, because then as soon as that transition's hit, the field update will automatically update that date stamp field with the correct date. So really, really powerful. And then as we get into some more developer-y stuff, we also have webhooks and custom actions as well. Obviously, depending on your level of Zoho expertise, they may be really powerful as well. I use custom actions a lot in the different blueprints I do, particularly when we're integrating to third-party systems and all of that kind of stuff. And then finally, we've got tags and execute circuits, which are quite new. So again, I'm not going to get into that today. Now, that should give you a nice overview of the different automation options. The final thing I want to talk about, and the final thing I think is really powerful about blueprints, are SLAs, or time requirements. So let's say when something enters needs analysis, we want the team to spend a maximum of 2 days on that. And we can choose whether that's 2 days or 2 business days, and we can also do hours and minutes as well. We'll do 2 business days. And then we can choose what happens if the deal is still in that status after that 2 business days. So I could do on 2 business days. So once it's hit that deadline, we can then have it do stuff like send an SLA notification. So it could notify a manager to say, hey, this thing hasn't been done. It could assign a task. It could call a webhook to notify another system. In our case, we'll do an SLA notification, and we'll do that to myself. And then we can actually do more as well. So if it continues to still not be completed, then after another 1 business day, we can then do another notification. So we can see that streamlined sort of communication and making sure the process is followed really, really well here. Now, if I go back into here, and I'm just going to refresh on here to make sure we're all up to date. So you can see I'm in needs analysis. I'm just going to go to close loss and go back through the loop just because we've changed the SLA now. So let's do that. And I'm going to go back into qualification, and then we'll go into qualification completed. And you can see here now that SLA is now in progress. You can see there's 2 days here. And you can see that'll turn red once the SLA has been, if the SLA is missed. And what's nice as well is we can also display this, depending on your view settings, you can also display this in the top view as well to see exactly what's going on. These SLAs, I think, are actually the secret sort of game changer to blueprints. I use them all the time. Once we've got blueprints set up, they become key because it means we can have real milestones in making sure things are moved forward. And it prevents that issue of something just kind of lingering and sitting in a stage when it just shouldn't be. Hopefully this was helpful. A bit of a different video because we're going through a sort of a whole feature set within Zoho. But if you have any questions or have any thoughts around blueprints or want any clarification, just let me know and I'm happy to go through it in more detail with you. That's it for this week. Next week, I'll be back with another video covering some more Zoho goodness. But until then, I will speak to you next week.